Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. This is the Deep Dive. My name is Drew Creekmer, and I'm the Director of Advisory Services at Creekmer Wealth. I'm joined by John Creekmer, our founder and Senior Wealth Advisor. And John, we're going to talk a little bit about what's happened in the past, what had happened in 2025. Some big things happened in tax legislation and markets, but we're also going to do a bit of a reset for 2026. And John, in your personal life, what do you do at the start of the year to reset for the year ahead?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, first thing I always do is in between Christmas and New Year's, Stacy and I take some time. We actually revisit what happened in the last year, I'm going to say personally, and then also financially. And so, we have a lot of folks that say, how often should I review my investment plan? How often should I review my finances? Personally, we look at things monthly as far as in the general and have a general awareness. But that one time a year, we do a deep dive on where everything is financial, our balance sheet, what are our asset levels, what's our liability levels, what's our cash flow look like, what does our income look like from a tax standpoint. And so we really have an understanding of that personally. Right. But then we start to say, what are the things we accomplished this year? In 2025, Stacy and I had 25 and 25. What are the 25 things that we want to do? So we did a glass blowing class was one of those. We did some dancing, which was one of those things we wanted to do. We actually had a different number of items, 10 different things that we wanted to cook outside over a live fire. That was fun. One of the things, Drew, we had down our list was we wanted to actually sing in a choir, which I have a horrible voice.
Oh, love it.
And we say we're going to check that one off. So we, in Christmas this year, we sang in a choir. And so actually I kind of was quiet on that to make sure I didn't get too loud. I'd be off tune. But and so we look at the things both on the personal side and the financial side. Well, then we start to say, let's look at the next year. And let's start to identify what are those things we want to do personally, or relationally, or in family, or in community. But then also then financially, where do we need to go to see things actually move in a positive direction? So the personal side we do it, we do the professional side, and we also do it on the relational side. And we say, let's try to identify where we've been the previous year and then identify where we're going to go in the next year.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. And it's something, I personally do a very similar process as well. I think it's great for everyone to do that. And John, as you're walking through things and saying, well, hey, this happened in 2025 financially, our accounts did really great, you also need to understand why did that happen, right? So let's kind of talk just markets and economy, what happened in 2025. So we've been in really one of the greatest stock market bull markets in the last 15 years here in the United States. The last 3 years, guys, has been really great for all of you. It's really been massively beneficial. But John, we're starting to see some things change, right? We're starting to see this was the first year in the last 15 years where international stocks outperformed U.S.-based stocks. And so, John, everything changes. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. What are some of your main takeaways from markets and the economy in 2025?
Things don't always go in the same direction forever. And in 2025, we actually had, this is the third year of significant double-digit rate of return in U.S. equity markets. And so whenever we see that, we begin to really question what happens the next year.
Right.
And so, but before we can actually figure out what's happening the next year, we have to start to define what happened in the previous year. So we know for sure, and we had a new tax bill go through, and there was a number of things that happened with that. There's also things that didn't happen with that.
Right.
And so, like, one of the things that's caused a lot of uncertainty toward the end of the year is actually healthcare premiums for this next year. And so we have some tax incentives as far as on the premium side based upon income and asset levels that was basically allowed to kind of create a lot of confusion. And so that caused uncertainty, which caused the markets to kind of gyrate. And so we know in April of this last year when the tariffs were announced, we saw the market drop significantly, about 19% over about 4 weeks. And then again in October and November, at the end of October through the month of November, with the instability of the government, we had a shutdown, which they're estimating is going to take about 2% off of the GDP growth for the fourth quarter. We'll see how the numbers play out at the end of January, but that's significant,
Right.
Drew. I mean, that really hurts the overall economy. And so we had a good year in equity returns, but you had just mentioned that we saw international stocks outperform U.S. stocks for the first time in a long time. It's been underperforming actually the last 30 years. And so with outperformance internationally, well, that's really caused because a number of things have happened. We saw the U.S. dollar decrease significantly in value.
Right.
We have some instability as far as in our government running the country. And so it just creates a lot of uncertainty. We do know what does the market like? It likes certainty. And this year I'm going to say is marked by uncertainty. We have instability. We have trade issues going on. We have dollar issues going on. Will the Federal Reserve decrease interest rates, leave them the same, or possibly increase them? We have instability as far as unemployment. What's the true unemployment number? Where are we at as far as full employment as far as in the country?
Right.
So all of those things play into uncertainty as far as the economy. Not sure how it's going to play out. It sets up for some unusual things the next year. And Drew, something you and I talk about a lot is national debt.
Yeah.
Well, where do we stand now in national debt? Is it?
We're approaching what, $39 trillion at
Yeah.
this point, I believe, and it's actually obviously an all-time high, but it's rapidly growing, right? We've not actually seen spending at the governmental level get cut, and so with national debt expanding at that pace, that really impacts a lot of things, right? Maybe eventually taxes have to go up. We know the bill that was just passed in 2025 kind of codified the rates and the brackets for the future, but at some point the bill comes due, right? So when we talk about all these things, John, we have a lot of uncertainty as we enter into 2026. We just talked a little bit about how you reset financially.
Yeah.
What would you encourage all of our clients who are watching this video, just thinking about last year and what's going on in the market, the uncertainty? How should they think about resetting for the year ahead as it relates to their financial life?
Yeah, I think the first thing you always do at the beginning of the year is you want to say what things are different this year. What is the visibility that we have in our personal lives to see are things going to be the same? Or are we going to see a change coming up in this next 12 months? And it can be a health change. It could be a work change. It could be a career change. It could be retirement. It could be expansion of family. It could be whatever it might be. What is your visibility for this year on the personal side? Then once you make that determination, then you say, what's going to be changing for us from a financial standpoint? Do we need to buy a new vehicle? Are we looking at selling or buying a piece of property? What are those things that are going to be happening that we have visibility on? Once you define those, you really want to say, where are we at right now? And so based upon your goal objectives, which we identify what a goal objective is a time and a dollar amount to accomplish something. Once you have that identified, you say, how are we still tracking for that? In other words, that's still our goal objective. And then how are we doing with that?
Right.
And Drew, that's something that we specialize in, and we've really drilled down, and our systems are set up with our technology where at any time our clients have a conversation with their advisor to say, how are we doing in relation to our goal objectives? And the market's been up the last 3 years. How has that affected me as far as my goal objectives? And so I think the next thing you want to do is talk to your wealth advisor or your wealth advisors so we can make sure to reset the conversation to say, here's where you're at, here's how things have changed, here's what you need to be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. Have that conversation with your advisor, reset the conversation with them as you move into this new year. The other thing I would encourage you all to bring up is our financial planning subscription models. John, this is something we've heard from a lot of clients around the country. There's been a lot of demand for this. And so we've talked a little bit about that. But when you think about the uncertainty and resetting for the new year, why is that subscription model so impactful and so helpful for folks?
You know, we've been hearing over the last 3-4 years, maybe 5 years, that clients really want to take some insular decisions they used to make on one topic. In other words, how do I invest my 401k? Or how do I invest my IRA? Or do I need to have more term insurance? Right. And they wanted to bring everything together holistically. They would consider their tax planning. How do I minimize taxes legally, morally, and ethically in the current year and totally over my lifetime? How do I actually not just lower my taxes, but make sure they're reported properly?
Right.
How do I make sure that all of my final documents, my will, my trust, is all coordinated with my investments? How do I have my investments structured in a way that makes sense where I know exactly where I'm at all times to achieve those goal objectives? And so we actually simplified the processes last year. We brought it down to what we call a subscription model. What it really is taking all of your financial planning, all of your tax planning, all of your income planning, all of your risk planning, and all of your inheritance planning. We bring it into one cohesive plan where all of the pieces work together symbiotically to help you get to a better spot to make wise decisions to achieve incredible things. But everything there drives confidence. So at the end of it all, we want to make sure that we educate you as far as in where you're at and where you need to go. We want to encourage you in the journey. We want to make sure that also that we actually give you the empowerment to actually go and achieve it by having the proper tools at your fingertips. And Drew, the response has been unbelievable. We had no idea what the response was going to be. All over the entire country, people said, that makes sense. How in the world do I execute on that?
Yeah, and we speak at events around the country, right? And these are folks that are not currently clients of ours. And oftentimes when we walk through that idea, they say, well, hey, my current advisor can't do that or doesn't do that. And that's awesome and amazing and really impactful for my life that you guys are bringing that together. So, guys, I would encourage you, have that reset conversation for 2026. Bring up that financial planning program that John just walked through. There's a ton of value in there, and it's really going to help ensure that you stay on track to achieving those big picture goals and dreams that you have. So, thank you for the time, and we'll talk to you all soon.